Hi, welcome to Art from Home. I'm Judy Larson, director of the Westmont Ridley-Tree Museum of Art. And today we're going to make some cookies called marzipan cookies. And here's some of the shapes that you can make with them. The dough holds the shape really well, so you can treat it almost like it's Play-Doh. But what is marzipan? Well, it is a sweet yellowish paste of ground almonds. You add sugar and egg whites and food coloring, and it's used to make small cakes that are sometimes called confections. Marzipan is also called almond paste. Now, we've all been to a bakery and seen those colorful, beautiful shelves, and I bet some of them were decorated with marzipan. Marzipan was invented in Lübeck, Germany, and legend has it that in the 15th century there was a famine where flour was very scarce, and you need flour to make bread, and bread is a staple of the diet. And so the Senate of Lübeck ordered bakers to find a replacement, and they tried everything they could think of. They had a huge stockpile of almonds, so they ground them down into a kind of flour-like paste and found that it was a good substitute, and that became known as marzipan. You add a little sugar to it, and it's almost like a candy. Look at the things you can make with marzipan. I love this one in the upper left. It's a frozen cake, and they even have added little plates of glass there, and that's just hard candy that's been broken up. Next is a lot of flowers out of the garden, all marzipan. Or look at this cute one in the right that has a worm and a bee and flowers and mushrooms. It's awfully cute. Down below, you'll recognize Peter Rabbit, and there he is in the garden. And then to the far right, the whole garden with a fence around it, and it looks like, what are they growing in there? Cabbages and carrots and pumpkins and tomatoes. So you can see the clever things you can do with marzipan. But our recipe is not almond paste. It's a cookie, but you can shape it and mold it into lots of different objects, in this case, fruit. Or, because Halloween is coming up, you might want to do something ghoulish like fingers or brains, or how about maggots or worms? It's kind of icky, but it might be a fun centerpiece for Halloween. What about Thanksgiving? What if you made your whole centerpiece out of fruits and vegetables, and at the end of dinner, you told everybody, you can eat it. Look at these great shapes: carrots and grapes and potatoes and pears, strawberries, lots of yummy things. Or maybe you just want to go with pumpkins. Look at these cute pumpkins. Christmas, how about snowmen or trees or Santa Claus? Are you getting the idea? You can create so many things out of this batter we're going to make. I thought this one was funny. This is little mice coming out of the cake that looks like a big hunk of cheese. And here's a close-up of the mice with ears made out of almond slivers. Isn't that cute? Or Easter. Here's some Easter eggs, some Easter flowers. Those are cute ideas. How about two little spring piglets? Or chicks? These are awfully cute. But today I'm going to do fruits and vegetables. You can do whatever you want, but this is just an easy place to start. And let's get started. Here's the recipe. What you need is 1 cup of margarine, which is 2 sticks, a half a cup of sugar, 2½ cups of flour, and 1 teaspoon of almond extract. And if you don't have almond extract, vanilla extract tastes just as good. So let's start with our batter. So we start with the margarine and just put it in. I like to take a knife and just maybe cut it into some smaller pieces. It's sort of easier to work with if it's a little bit cut up. Here's my second margarine stick. So 2 sticks, that makes 1 cup of margarine. And that's a good thing to remember if you do become a baker. Sugar. I have my sugar in a jar here. So I'm going to open that up and make, this is a ½ cup of sugar. So pour it in there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but close to perfect. I like to shake it around. So can you see that's a full ½ cup of sugar. And now, I like a wooden spoon, but you can use whatever you want. We're going to, what they call, cream the butter, which means get the sugar all nice and melted into it. This is what it should look like when you have it, the sugar and the butter creamed together. And now we're going to add 2½ cups of flour. So here's my cup measuring, here's my flour. Same thing, fill it up, shake it a little bit, fill it up. 1, 2, remember to switch over. Okay, 2.5 cups. Now this is a little bit harder to mix, so I get it started with my wooden spoon, but I do something that's called cutting it in. This is a trick where you have 2 knives and you just crisscross them like you're making a pie crust, and it's going to get nice and crumbly. So it doesn't take too long. You can turn your bowl and cut the other way. Now we have the butter, the sugar, and the flour. There's one last ingredient, and that's almond extract. So I just use, it calls for 1 teaspoon, and I just use a regular teaspoon and fill it up, put it in there, and then mix that in really good because that almond flavor is going to make it taste like real marzipan. But if you don't have any almond, remember you can use vanilla. It tastes pretty good too. My crumbles are getting just close to the right size. The right size should kind of be the size of maybe a green pea or the tip of your finger. So, can you see what that looks like? That doesn't look like much, but that's about perfect. I call them crumbles. So get it mixed until your butter, your sugar, and your flour are just a bowl full of crumbles. And then, remember, clean hands. We're going to take pieces of it and we're going to mix it with our hands. And see how you can squeeze it together and it starts to stick. It takes just a few minutes. And don't give up. It may look like, oh, this is never going to stick together, but it does. This is what mine looks like. Yours should look similar. It's pretty easy to work. In fact, it feels just like Play-Doh, doesn't it? And that's kind of how it's going to feel when we start sculpting our fruits. So I have several bowls here, and I'm going to put color into these so that we have different colors. It's all separated. Let's start with the color. I usually do about 10 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And your hands are going to get a little red, but you can wash it off, so don't worry. And just work it in there. See how it's already turning a nice bright red? You can also add the color while it's still in the crumble stage, and probably your hands don't get as dirty, but I think this is the fun part. I think that looks pretty good, and so do my hands. So I'm going to do the rest of them with the food coloring, and we'll come back and start making shapes. So here we have the batter with all the color in it. Let's just take a look. Here we have a light green color and a dark green color. Those were 2 different kinds of coloring. And here we have purple, and I made the purple by putting a few drops of blue and a few drops of red and then mixing it all together. And here are our warmer colors. I have orange, I have red, I have yellow, and this one I didn't put any coloring at all. It's white, so we could make things that need to be white. So now these need to go into the refrigerator at least an hour, even overnight. If you're getting tired and you want to work on them in the morning, it hardens them up and they're much easier to handle. Okay, now we need to preheat the oven before we make our form. So I have an electric stove. I've turned it on to bake and I've turned it up to 300 degrees. So I have them out of the fridge and you can feel them. They're a lot harder. So I have a lot of orange here. Let's start with orange. I'm going to make some pumpkins. So I roll them to little, like about the size of a walnut. And I'm going to put them here on my cutting board. They don't have to be perfectly the same size, but I wouldn't make little tiny ones and great big ones. Okay, then I'm going to put where we're going to have our stem. I'll put a little hole here. And then what does a pumpkin have? It kind of has some sections going down. So I take my toothpick and I just make some sections on the pumpkin. Can you see that? And there's my pumpkin. So that looks a lot like a pumpkin. Now I'm going to take just a smidge of the green, sort of roll it out into a little snake form. Yeah, like that. And then let's just cut it into some shorter ones. And you'll notice I'm using the toothpick. It really helps. Okay, it's that easy. Now we have 3 pumpkins. And I'm using a cookie sheet with a piece of what they call parchment paper. I find that it helps them not to burn. And if your cookie sheets are like mine, kind of old, it's good. And you can put these fairly close because they're not going to melt down. They're going to stay about the same. So those are our pumpkins. Now you remember I did the purple? I'm going to make some grapes. Now grapes are smaller, so I'm going to pinch off several small pieces here and then just roll them into balls. Okay, so now let's make a little cluster of grapes by sticking these together. And then once again, I take just a little smidge of the green and I make a stem, and there's my grapes. All right, let's move on to making the peas. They're the tastiest peas you'll ever eat in your life. So you just roll it a little bit, get that pod shape, and then what I do is take the toothpick and just go down the middle of it like that, and then I kind of open it up a little bit so I have room for my peas. And then I like the light green as contrast so you can actually see the peas. And remember, peas are small, so you've got to get these a little bit smaller than the grapes. There, there's a pea pod. Okay, so you see how I had some green and it got mixed in? So what I do, I always keep some wipes handy. And between handling colors, it's not a bad idea just to wipe the old color off and be more careful. How about corn? Roll it out. You have to think what corn looks like. So that looks a little bit like a corn. And what I do is, again, I mark it with some stripes, if you can see. And then I go the other way to kind of make it look like it's kernels of corn. And then that also needs to have some green on top. So here's what I do to make a husk, and you can experiment and do it your own way. But I sort of run my toothpick all the way through. Corn husks, they don't have to all be even. There's my corn. How about red? We could do strawberries. Those strawberries, I roll those in a ball. And kind of strawberries are a little more pointed on the bottom, maybe like that. And for the top, let's clean my hands. Let's try some light green. That I roll in a ball, and then I squish it down with my thumb, put it on top, and then I use again my toothpick, and I just go around in a circle and make it look like that little cap that a strawberry wears just by scoring into it a few times. And then you could put a stem on that if you wanted to. But you know how strawberries have like little seeds on them? I just make that by taking my toothpick. You know, you can also, I have a fork here. So fork is also a good tool to use for this. Just put a bunch of little dots on it. And there's my strawberry. Let's make an apple. Apple would be, these obviously aren't to scale, so I wouldn't worry about that. It's just the look of things. So an apple is usually a little thinner on the bottom and maybe flatter on the top. And then I'm going to put my stem in here, maybe do a light green leaf after washing my hands, and just play around with it. Maybe make it a little more pointed like that. Stick it in that hole and let it go down. And there's a little apple. The other thing, one of my favorite fruits is a pear. So let's make a pear with this one. And you'll remember that pears are a little thinner on the top, and then they have kind of a fatter bottom to them. So maybe that looks a little bit like a shape of a pear. And let's do the same thing. We'll give it a little stem. I'll take the dark green after I wash my hands and see if I can't make a nice leaf here for that one. Here we go. And just kind of poke it down in that hole just to make sure. And you can have it touch or it doesn't have to touch. But does that look like a little pear? Let's put that one here too. Now I also had some white. So I was thinking white. What's white? Maybe a cauliflower. That's going to be a little bit hard, but a cauliflower usually has a stem on the bottom. And then maybe I just take my fork and make it look like it has a lot of little florets. I like cauliflower. So there's my little piece of cauliflower right there. So you can do whatever you want. I'm sticking with the fruits and vegetables, but you could make flowers, you can make faces, you can make whatever you like. But that's the basic idea. So here we have our first batch, some carrots, a pear, banana, corn, cauliflower, and look at this one. I tried a little snowman. I'm not sure he's going to work. He might kind of melt when I put him in the oven, but let's see. Apples, pumpkins, grapes, peas, a chili pepper. Let's see what happens. The dinger just went off, so let's see what we've got here. Oh, wow. How nice. We're out of the oven and here as a display. Wouldn't this make a cute centerpiece for your Thanksgiving table? We've got peas and carrots and corn and grapes and pumpkins, apples, strawberries, and even a little French snowman, plums, some cherries, some broccoli, cauliflower. Anyway, I hope you had fun. Whatever you create, I've made a little face here of a little guy. You don't have to do fruits and vegetables, but let us know what you did. It's so much fun. Take a picture and email it to us, and we can share it with others.